Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship.
In my opinion, you failed as a reporter.
From the inside, yes, there's a narrative. Yes, it is unspoken, but if you accidentally step outside the narrative, if you don't sense what that narrative is and go with it, there will be grave consequences for you.
It's not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads. It's about what our GM reads.
My question is very simple. Why are you doing this?
It affects the viewers, that's why I'm doing this. The viewers are being deceived by a carefully crafted narrative in some stories.
I have passed on Bitcoin stories. African-American audience of 5, it's probably not going to play. That's a choice I'm making, an editorial choice.
That seems sort of a racially charged statement to make.
I want out of this narrative news telling. I want out of this corruption.
Are you afraid of doing this?
I haven't had a lot of fear about it. I'm so horrified at what the news business has stooped to.
What you just heard was our newest insider, Fox 26 reporter Ivory Hecker, blowing the whistle on her own network's bias. Hecker felt compelled to come forward and shine a light on what she says is Fox 26 being, quote, deceptive to viewers.
Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship. Fox Corp is prioritizing corporate interests above the viewer's interests and therefore operating in a deceptive way.
Ivory, what do you do at Fox 26 Houston?
I'm a reporter, dayside reporter, primarily on the 5 o'clock news, also 6 o'clock news.
And why have you chosen to come forward?
What's happening within Fox Corp is an operation prioritizing corporate interests above the viewer's interests and therefore operating in a deceptive way. From my experience, my newsroom kind of groups everyone into racial groups.
I have passed on Bitcoin stories by almost every single reporter for our 5 o'clock audience because that's not our 5 o'clock audience. So there are lots of reasons. If I know our numbers are tanking from 5 to 6, and in one particular segment, an older woman, whatever, I may say, yeah, the Bitcoin for our poor African-American audience of 5, it's probably not going to play. That's a choice I'm making, an editorial choice.
What does she mean by that?
Research is done to study what sort of demographic groups watch each newscast, and it was found that, according to her, some of our biggest audience at 5 is poor Black people, and she has decided that poor Black people don't care about Bitcoin.
Hecker goes on to explain how she believes Fox 26's biases go beyond just race. It even seeps into their coverage of medicine and health in general.
Fox came at my throat for standing up against censorship.
Why do you think they did that?
From the inside, yes, there's a narrative. If you don't sense what that narrative is and go with it, there will be grave consequences for you. And this story with Dr. Verone proves that.
That's a great question, and the answer is yes. We have used it. I mean, we know that it's a drug that has been politicized up to the wazoo. We've used it. We use it with good success.
That was a story, by the way, that Susan and Lee sent me there to cover the COVID treatments at that hospital. I just wasn't supposed to ask that question.
You need to cease and desist posting about hydroxychloroquine. In my opinion, you failed as a reporter to not know more if you were going to post about hydroxychloroquine, that you didn't look it up and look at the latest posts, the latest research about it. Read the articles.
I have.
Study. There was a major study in the New England Journal of Medicine.
That study makes him more newsworthy. I was aware of that study, which is why I posted him.
What study?
Because
Which study?
I referenced it in my story about Dr. Emanuel. I have never to this day advocated for that drug. But Fox said, you've got to stop being biased.
When Hecker felt she was being targeted for simply trying to report the news, this motivated her to secretly record her supervisors, Vice President and News Director Susan Schiller and Assistant News Director Lee Meyer.
Industry executives who are the people who hire us and keep us employed. That's the part that needs to make a difference to you. It's not just about the viewers, it's about what our CEO reads. It's about what our GM reads.
GM is General Manager. What does that mean?
that means that corporate values are above the viewer's interests.
It appears Hecker wasn't alone. And when our undercover journalists caught up with Hecker's Houston Fox 26 crew, they weren't shy about the bias they also felt existed at the network.
You're at Fox 26? Yeah. How come you guys are like the all vaccine all the time channel?
We hire producers, which are the ones that write the show, that are right out of college, about 25 years old. They don't pay them squat. They just regurgitate what they're fed. It's low-hanging fruit. They're doing vaccines across town. Well, let's go get video of that. And at first, it's like, yeah, it's a big deal. When the vaccine first comes out. Here, 3 months later, it's like, okay, we know vaccines are available.
Right, and they're just pushing it so hard, and you don't hear anything about side effects.
No.
The vaccine seems to be working great for most people, okay? But the fact that they are choosing to avoid any negative press about it, they're not going and looking at viewers' legitimate concerns. If you want to get vaccinated, that's great. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your personal choice. But use the venue of news to try to convince you to do something with your life.
But every commercial now is about COVID. Every other one. Every other. So how does that work? Who buys that space?
We're in the time business.
CDC?
Yeah.
But how much money are they spending to do that, though? It's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, they spending money. They spending money because they can. CDC? They can. They in the pocket. They're there.
Do they pay more, though, to get all that time?
Yeah.
They do? So they would pay more to Mercedes.
Oh, yeah. Like, all right, I'll pay y'all this. This is almost like a gamble. A bidding war. It becomes a bidding war. Yeah, it's a bidding war. So if you
and
know
who wins the bidding war?
The highest motherfucking pay.
And who's the highest motherfucking payer?
Whoever wanna take it.
Vaccines are a potential moneymaker for Fox. As a viewer, you've got to look at who is advertising on this TV station, and you've got to realize that surely this TV station doesn't want to hurt its advertisers.
When Hecker's Fox 26 colleagues were asked if Fox 26 would ever adjust news coverage based on its advertisers, even they admit, quote, a lot of stuff can happen, unquote.
So could the ad council call you and be like, hey, I want to run all these spots, but I want to make sure your journalists aren't running any anti-vax stories.
If that happens, it's above our control.
And do you think you'd hear about it?
Oh, that happened? Oh, I'm so sad to hear that.
But does stuff like that ever happen?
It can. A lot of stuff can happen.
I looked up the ad council, and some of their biggest donors are the vaccine companies. Another one of their biggest donors is Fox Corp. So ad council would be paying Fox after Fox gave a tax-deductible donation to ad council.
Does the news industry need advertisers to exist?
They do. That's their primary source of funding.
Is that compatible with telling the news?
There's always that concern that the corporation might cater too much to advertising or self-censor to make sure they don't lose any advertisers.
A reasonable viewer might conclude that a local Fox reporter like Ivory might be doing this just for fame and notoriety. When asked, this is what she had to say.
It affects the viewers. That's why I'm doing this. The viewers are being deceived by a carefully crafted narrative in some stories. For some reason, some of these stories have an incredible slant, and if you accidentally step outside it, they try to internally destroy you.
Are you afraid of doing this?
I haven't had a lot of fear about it. I'm so horrified at what the news business has stooped to. Now, at this point, I want out. I want out of this corruption.
Corruption, that's a strong word.
I want out of the corruption. I want to tell true stories without fear of whether it fits the corporate narrative.
The corporate news paradigm is incompatible with journalism.
Absolutely. You need to stand for something or fall for anything. It is so important to keep that loyalty to the viewers and to the truth. If you allow yourself to be used as a tool of corporate narrative, you may very well be contributing to the problems that begin to develop in a society that develops a censored press.
Ivory Hecker is ready to pursue a career in independent journalism where she can report the news without fear or favor. If you work in media and see corruption, email us at veritastips@protonmail.com.